What if one small mistake changed your entire life? Anna never planned to cross paths with a billionaire, let alone capture one. Literally, she was just trying to survive, scrolling through job ads, desperate to pay rent and buy her mother's medicine. But a mysterious contract turned her world into a storm she couldn't escape. One wrong address, one impossible man, and a romance born from fear, trust, and a heartbeat that refused to slow down. He was supposed to be a stranger she'd never see again, but Ethan had other plans. How far would you go to protect someone who accidentally stole your heart? Stay until the end, because not every billionaire story begins with love. Some begin with a mistake that destiny refuses to undo. Anna stared at the pile of unpaid bills scattered across her tiny kitchen table. The silence felt heavier than the ticking clock on the wall. She'd left her stable job months ago to care for her mother, who barely left the hospital now. The rent was overdue, her savings were gone, and every heartbeat reminded her that time was running out. Los Angeles didn't forgive people who slowed down. Scrolling through online classifieds, her eyes caught a strange ad. High payment, discretion required, no questions asked. It felt wrong, but also like a whisper of hope in the middle of a storm. She hesitated, her breath shallow, imagining another rejection letter or another empty fridge, but fear of losing everything outweighed logic. She clicked the number and hit call. The voice on the other end was calm, too calm. "We pay well. Just follow instructions and you'll be safe." The words echoed like a secret promise, but Anna felt her stomach twist. Every instinct told her to hang up, yet the warmth in the stranger's tone made her trust him for reasons she couldn't explain. Desperation makes people see destiny where there's only danger. That night she couldn't sleep. Her mind kept replaying that voice, that contract she hadn't signed yet, and the truth she didn't want to face. She was about to do something reckless. The rain began to fall outside her window, soft at first, then louder, like the city warning her to turn back. But when morning came, she dressed in her best clothes, tied her hair back, and decided to meet whoever had written that ad. Something about that address didn't feel right, yet she couldn't stop herself from going. The address led Anna to a quiet street on the edge of downtown Los Angeles. The building looked forgotten, its faded sign barely visible under the sunlight. Inside, the air smelled of dust and old paper, and the silence pressed against her ears. She hesitated at the entrance, her hand trembling as she pushed the glass door open. Every breath she took felt heavier than the last. A woman in a gray suit appeared behind the counter, her eyes sharp but distant. "You're here for the delivery job?" she asked, avoiding direct eye contact. Anna nodded, trying to hide her nerves beneath a faint smile. The woman slid a stack of papers across the desk. No logo, no company name, only a signature line at the bottom. It didn't feel right. Yet curiosity and need blurred her judgment. As she read, strange words jumped off the page. Confidential task, no disclosure, non-refundable clause. Anna's fingers tightened around the pen. The contract didn't say what she'd be delivering, only that she'd be paid in cash, tonight. Her heartbeat echoed in the empty room like a warning. Still, she signed. Maybe it was trust, maybe it was fear, disguised as courage. When she handed the papers back, the woman smiled for the first time, almost too kindly. "You'll receive instructions soon," she said, slipping a sealed envelope into Anna's hand. As Anna stepped outside, the city light felt colder, as if something invisible had already begun. Her fingers brushed over the envelope's surface, and deep down, a whisper told her this job wasn't what it seemed. The envelope was heavier than it should have been, and Anna hadn't realized yet she'd just signed away more than a job. Back in her apartment, Anna tore open the envelope, expecting a delivery address or an item description. Instead, she found a single note with strange instructions. "Drive to this location. Wait for a call. Do not ask questions." No object to pick up, no contact name, nothing that made sense. She felt the chill of uncertainty crawl across her skin, but her fear was already mixed with a dangerous kind of hope. She needed the money. Her mother's medicine, the overdue rent, the silent refrigerator, it all weighed more than her doubts. Maybe it was a new kind of private courier service, she told herself. Maybe people in Los Angeles paid extra for secrecy. That lie gave her just enough comfort to ignore the storm forming inside her chest. The next morning, Anna sat at her small kitchen table, staring at the paper as sunlight poured through the blinds. Her coffee had gone cold, but her thoughts were burning. What kind of job required no questions? And why did she feel like someone was already watching her? The silence around her wasn't peace, it was pressure. She folded the paper, slipped it into her bag, and looked at her reflection in the window. It's just one day, she whispered, trying to convince herself. One day that could change everything, or destroy what little she still had. Her phone buzzed. A new message flashed on the screen with a single word: go. Anna grabbed her keys and stepped outside, unaware that the next address would pull her straight into someone. Anna drove through Los Angeles traffic with her windows down, hoping the morning air would clear her mind. The note had led her to a quiet part of the city, far from the crowded streets she knew. When she arrived, the location wasn't an office or a store. It was an empty parking lot behind an old warehouse. Her breath caught as she realized how alone she was. Still, she waited. Minutes turned into an hour. Then her phone rang. A calm, male voice instructed, "Pick up the black bag near the bench. Don't open it. Drive to the next address and wait for my call." The tone was steady, confident, like someone used to being obeyed. Anna felt her pulse quicken. Something inside her screamed to leave, yet the promise of money echoed louder than her fear. She found the bag just where he said it would be. Its weight was odd. Not heavy, not light, but unsettling. As she carried it to her car, rain began to fall, tapping against the roof like a warning. Her heartbeat synchronized with the rhythm of each drop. Still, she told herself it was fine, that people in Los Angeles did weird things for business all the time. Driving into the gray afternoon, Anna followed the directions on her GPS toward an unfamiliar part of town. The silence inside the car was deafening, broken only by her shallow breaths. She didn't realize that the voice guiding her wasn't just giving orders, he was watching her every move. And soon, her small mistake would turn his test into something dangerously real. Somewhere across the city, Ethan leaned back in his chair, eyes fixed on her through hidden cameras. The game had officially begun. Across the city, inside a sleek glass office overlooking downtown Los Angeles, Ethan sat behind his desk, watching multiple screens flicker in front of him. The calm in his eyes didn't match the storm brewing behind them. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who trusted no one, not after the betrayal that nearly destroyed his company months ago. Testing loyalty had become his obsession, and today's operation was his final experiment. He adjusted his tie, eyes narrowing as he watched Anna's car pull out of the parking lot on one of the monitors. She wasn't supposed to be there. Someone had swapped the names on the list, and now a stranger, desperate and untrained, was part of his plan. Ethan leaned forward, studying her expression: fear, confusion, innocence. None of it fit the kind of person he was trying to catch. "Who is she?" he asked quietly, his voice echoing in the empty office. His assistant hesitated, then replied, "We don't know, sir, but she followed the instructions perfectly." Ethan's jaw tightened. Trust was his weakness once, and he refused to let it be again. Still, something about her made him pause, a flicker of honesty he hadn't seen in years. He turned off the main feed and stared out at the rain hitting the windows. Every instinct told him to stop the test, to pull her out before it went too far. But control was what defined him, and curiosity had always been his most dangerous habit. What he didn't know was that Anna's next move would break his carefully built plan in ways he never imagined. Across the city, inside a sleek glass office overlooking downtown Los Angeles, Ethan sat behind his desk, watching multiple screens flicker in front of him. The calm in his eyes didn't match the storm brewing behind them. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was a man who trusted no one, not after the betrayal that nearly destroyed his company months ago. Testing loyalty had become his obsession, and today's operation was his final experiment. He adjusted his tie, eyes narrowing as he watched Anna's car pull out of the parking lot on one of the monitors. She wasn't supposed to be there. Someone had swapped the names on the list, and now a stranger, desperate and untrained, was part of his plan. Ethan leaned forward, studying her expression: fear, confusion, innocence. None of it fit the kind of person he was trying to catch. "Who is she?" he asked quietly, his voice echoing in the empty office. His assistant hesitated, then replied, "We don't know, sir, but she followed the instructions perfectly." Ethan's jaw tightened. Trust was his weakness once, and he refused to let it be again. Still, something about her made him pause, a flicker of honesty he hadn't seen in years. He turned off the main feed and stared out at the rain hitting the windows. Every instinct told him to stop the test, to pull her out before it went too far. But control was what defined him, and curiosity had always been his most dangerous habit. What he didn't know was that Anna's next move would break his carefully built plan in ways he never imagined. As Anna's phone buzzed again with new directions, one wrong turn was about to turn Ethan's test into chaos. Anna followed the GPS until the signal vanished near the outskirts of the city. The road was narrow, surrounded by trees, and the air felt heavier with each mile. She pulled over at the exact spot mentioned in the last message. The instructions had said she'd meet someone there to collect confirmation, but no one was waiting. The silence wrapped around her like fog, and her fear began to whisper louder than her logic. Then, headlights appeared behind her, blinding her for a moment. A dark car stopped, and a man stepped out, tall, composed, with an expression that sent a shiver down her spine. Without thinking, Anna assumed he was part of the job. "Are you the contact?" she asked, her voice trembling. He didn't answer, just stared, his eyes sharp as stormlight. Her heart pounded, her breath uneven. Something about his calmness made it worse. Panicking, she grabbed the small prop gun from the glove compartment, the one the woman at the office had told her to bring for safety. "Get in the car," she said, trying to sound brave. The man raised an eyebrow, more surprised than scared. But he complied, his movements slow, deliberate, almost like he was testing her. If only Anna had known who he really was, the billionaire behind every message she'd received. As she drove away, her hands shook on the steering wheel. Rain began to fall again, harder this time, tapping against the glass like fate itself. Ethan sat in the back seat, watching her through the dim light, realization dawning in his eyes. The woman he'd accidentally involved had just turned his fake game into something real, and neither of them could turn back now. Ethan's voice finally broke the silence. "Do you even know who I am?" But before Anna could answer, thunder roared, and the real chase began. The tires splashed through puddles as Anna gripped the steering wheel, her pulse racing faster than the wipers could move. Ethan sat silently in the back seat, his presence heavier than the storm outside. Every glance in the rearview mirror made her chest tighten. His eyes were calm, too calm, like someone in control even when tied. Fear and curiosity battled inside her like thunder and lightning. She didn't know whether to run or to ask who he really was. "Where are we going?" he finally asked, his voice low, unsettlingly composed. Anna hesitated. "Wherever this job ends," she muttered, her breath shaky. He almost smiled, a faint curve of disbelief on his lips. "You think this is still a job?" The words sliced through the air. Anna's stomach dropped. A truth she hadn't wanted to face began to form. Something was deeply wrong with everything she'd agreed to. Lightning flashed across the sky, lighting up Ethan's face for a second. He didn't look afraid. He looked intrigued. "You're braver than they said," he murmured, almost to himself. Anna frowned. "Who said?" But before he could answer, her phone rang again, that same calm voice from before, giving her new coordinates. She realized, too late, that whoever was orchestrating this wasn't done with them yet. Ethan leaned forward slightly, his voice softer now. "You're driving blind, Anna, and you have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." Her grip tightened on the wheel as the storm grew louder. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she was escaping danger or driving straight into it. Either way, her life, and his, had already collided with destiny. The engine began to sputter, warning lights flashing on the dashboard, and in the distance the faint glow of a cabin promised shelter, or something much darker. The rain turned into a downpour, blurring the road ahead until the world looked like moving glass. The car coughed once, then twice, before dying completely. Anna hit the steering wheel in frustration. The storm outside roared like an angry heartbeat. "Great," she muttered, glancing at Ethan in the back seat. He met her eyes through the mirror, calm, analytical, like he was already thinking 3 steps ahead. "There's a cabin up ahead," he said, nodding toward a faint light through the trees. "We should wait there." His tone wasn't a suggestion. It was command. Anna hesitated, but the freezing wind seeping through the car door convinced her. She grabbed the bag, her jacket, and stepped into the rain, feeling the cold cut through her like shards of glass. Ethan followed, his silence unsettling. He didn't even seem bothered by the storm. They reached the small cabin after what felt like forever. It creaked with every gust of wind, but at least it was dry. Inside, there was only an old fireplace, some dusty furniture, and the faint smell of cedar. Anna's fingers shook as she lit a match, the flame flickering weakly before catching. For a brief moment, warmth returned, but so did the awareness that she was trapped with a man she didn't understand. Ethan stood by the window, watching the rain fall in rhythmic waves. His voice was steady when he finally spoke. "You shouldn't have been part of this." She looked up, her pulse quickening. "Then why am I?" she asked. He turned toward her, his expression unreadable. "Because someone wanted me to fail." His words hung in the air, heavy and sharp, as thunder cracked outside. Anna's fear turned into questions, and the tension between them was about to ignite something neither could control. The cabin's silence grew heavier as the storm raged outside. The flicker of the fire painted their faces in shifting shades of gold and shadow. Anna sat on the floor hugging her knees, watching Ethan pace like a caged lion. His calmness irritated her. "You don't even look scared," she said, her voice trembling. "Should I be?" he replied, not even glancing her way. The contrast between their worlds had never felt so real. "You're acting like this is all normal," she snapped. "Like being trapped in a cabin with a stranger is just business as usual." Ethan finally turned, eyes glinting in the firelight. "Fear doesn't help," he said quietly. "Thinking does." His words stung. She wanted to scream, to demand answers, but something about his control made her want to understand him instead. That was her mistake, trying to see truth in someone who lived behind walls. He crouched near the fire, close enough that she could see the tiny scar on his jaw. "You remind me of someone," he said, voice softening. "Someone who believed trust could fix anything." She frowned. "And what happened to them?" He looked at her for a long second before replying, "They were wrong." The warmth from the fire did nothing to ease the chill that followed. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them thickened, full of tension neither could name. The storm outside echoed the one forming inside. Anna wanted to hate him, his arrogance, his mystery, but her heartbeat told another story. As thunder shook the walls, their eyes met again, and something fragile but dangerous sparked to life. To escape the storm, or maybe the silence, Ethan broke it first. "Let's make this simple. You ask one question, and I'll ask one." Their eyes met again, and something fragile but dangerous sparked to life. Ethan leaned back against the wall, the fire's reflection dancing in his eyes. "One question each," he said, voice steady but softer now. "No lies." Anna raised an eyebrow, unsure if it was a game or another test. "Fine," she muttered. "Why me?" He hesitated, the faintest flicker of surprise crossing his face. "You weren't supposed to be part of this," he said quietly. "But you didn't back down when you should have." Her turn. "Why the secrecy?" she asked, leaning forward. Ethan's expression tightened, as if the answer itself hurt. "Because people close to me keep selling my trust," he said. "So I stopped giving it." The confession wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, heavy, real. Anna could tell he wasn't used to admitting weakness. For a moment, she saw the man behind the control, a truth hidden under layers of silence. Then he looked straight at her. "Your turn again," he said. "What are you afraid of?" The question hit harder than she expected. Her throat tightened. "Losing everything," she whispered. "My home, my mother, myself." The warmth of the fire reached her face, but inside she felt cold. Ethan didn't respond, just nodded slowly, as if the answer connected them more than she'd meant it to. Hours slipped by, the storm still raging outside. Their voices softened, their questions turned personal, their walls slowly falling. Anna didn't notice how close they were sitting until she could feel his breath, steady but shallow. "Last question," he murmured. "Do you trust me?" She looked into his eyes, unsure if the right answer even existed. "Not yet," she said, "but maybe I will." Ethan's eyes lingered on her just a second too long, and in that silence, her truth was about to surface. The fire had burned low, painting the cabin in amber light. Anna sat with her arms wrapped around her knees, eyes fixed on the flickering flames. "You wanted the truth," she said finally, breaking the long silence. Ethan didn't move, but his gaze softened. "Then tell me." Her heartbeat felt loud in her chest, every word she was about to speak tasting like fear. Still, she knew hiding wouldn't help anymore. "My mother's sick," she began, voice trembling. "I quit my job to take care of her. I thought I could manage, but the bills kept coming. When I saw that ad, I told myself it was just a delivery job." Her breath caught as she blinked back tears. "I didn't think it mattered what it was, as long as it paid." Ethan said nothing. He just watched, his expression unreadable but his silence oddly kind. "I used to have dreams," she continued, her voice smaller now. "Teaching, maybe traveling one day. But when life hits you, you stop dreaming and start surviving." She looked up at him, eyes glassy. "You ever feel like you're trapped in your own mistakes?" For a moment something shifted in his eyes. Recognition. It was as if her pain had mirrored a piece of his own. He leaned forward slightly, his tone quiet but sincere. "You shouldn't be apologizing for trying to survive." His words lingered in the air like warmth after a storm. Anna exhaled, realizing that for the first time in months, someone had really listened. But before she could thank him, thunder cracked outside again. reminding her that peace never lasts long. Ethan stared into the fire, jaw tense. "You told your truth," he said softly. "Now I owe you mine." Ethan's eyes stayed on the dying flames, the glow tracing the sharp lines of his face. For a long time he said nothing. Then, almost as if confessing to the night itself, he spoke. "Everything you've been through, it's because of me." Anna frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" He turned toward her slowly. "The job, the contract, all of it. It was never real." The truth hit the room harder than the rain against the roof. He explained how he'd built a loyalty test to catch whoever inside his company had been leaking private information, a fake assignment, controlled communication. No real danger. At least that was the plan. "But you," he said, eyes heavy, "you weren't supposed to be part of it." Anna stared at him, speechless. Her pulse quickened. Fear and anger tangled together. "So I was just, what? A mistake?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "A mistake I never meant to make," he said, his tone quiet, but filled with something she couldn't name. Regret, maybe guilt. Someone switched the names on the list. "I don't know why yet, but I know who benefits from it." He stood, pacing as if the walls were closing in. The warmth that had begun to form between them now flickered like a fragile flame fighting the wind. Anna tried to process everything. The lies, the manipulation, the fact that he'd been watching her from the beginning. "You used me," she whispered. Ethan met her eyes. "I didn't want to," he said, "but now I have to fix it." Outside, the rain intensified, echoing her heartbeat. The silence that followed wasn't peace. It was the calm before something much worse. A sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. Proof that Ethan's fake plan had just turned dangerously real. The knock came again, louder this time, sharp and deliberate. Anna froze. Her breath caught halfway. Ethan motioned for her to stay quiet, his entire demeanor shifting from calm to alert in an instant. He approached the window, peeking through the wooden blinds just enough to see headlights cutting through the rain. His pulse quickened. "They found us," he murmured. Anna didn't understand yet who they were, but his voice made her believe it was bad. Outside, two figures stepped out of a black SUV, silhouettes blurred by the downpour. "Is this part of your test?" Anna whispered, her voice shaking. Ethan didn't answer. He grabbed his phone, tried to make a call, but the screen flashed. No signal. "Who are they?" She pressed again. "People who think I'm worth a lot more gone than alive," he said quietly. The truth landed like a punch to her chest. Ethan moved fast, checking the back door, counting exits, every movement precise. Anna could see now, this wasn't a man used to panic. It was a man used to danger. The firelight flickered against his face, revealing focus, fear, and something else, responsibility. "You shouldn't have signed that contract," he said. "It pulled you into something much bigger." She wanted to scream that she hadn't chosen any of this, but there was no time. The cabin filled with silence again, the kind that makes your heart echo louder than sound itself. The footsteps outside stopped. Ethan looked at her, eyes steady. "If they come in, you do exactly what I say." Anna nodded, every nerve on fire. The doorknob turned slowly, the creak slicing through the air. She held her breath, praying that trust wasn't her biggest mistake. As thunder roared, the door burst open, and in that instant nothing about their story would ever be fake again. The door slammed open, wind and rain rushing inside like a wave. Ethan reacted first. He grabbed Anna's hand and pulled her toward the back room. The world blurred between fear and adrenaline, every heartbeat louder than the storm. They hid behind a wooden divider, shadows swallowing them whole. Anna's fingers trembled in his, the warmth of his touch the only thing that didn't feel like chaos. Through the cracks, she saw two men enter, flashlights cutting through the dim light. Their voices were muffled by the thunder, but their tone was sharp, impatient. "He's here somewhere," one said. Ethan's breath hitched, his body tense beside hers. Anna could hear the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, could feel the heat of him so close, and for a moment fear melted into something she didn't understand. When the footsteps faded, Ethan turned to her, whispering, "We'll wait until they're gone." His voice was low but calm, steady in a way that made her believe him. She nodded, eyes locked on his. The storm outside mirrored the storm inside her. Fear, relief, confusion. She didn't know what terrified her more, the men searching for them or the way her heart reacted every time he looked at her. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the rain tapping against the walls. Ethan leaned back, exhaustion settling over him. "You should rest," he said softly. "You've been through enough." Anna shook her head. "So have you." Their eyes met again in the half-light. a fragile connection born from danger, and as the fire slowly died, something in them quietly began to live. But when morning came, one unguarded glance would turn fear into desire, and the line between them would start to disappear. Morning arrived quietly, sunlight slipping through the cracks of the old cabin. The storm had passed, but its echo lingered in the air. Anna opened her eyes to find Ethan already awake, standing near the window, shirt sleeves rolled, his focus distant. There was something different about him in the daylight, less untouchable, more human. Her breath caught before she could stop it. She quickly looked away, pretending to fix her hair. Ethan turned, catching her movement. "Sleep well?" he asked, voice calm, but softer than usual. "As well as someone who almost got shot last night," she said, half smiling. He chuckled quietly, and for the first time she saw it, a warmth behind his eyes, the kind of warmth that could burn if she let it too close. Silence filled the space again, heavy but not uncomfortable, just different. They shared breakfast from the few supplies they'd found, a can of beans, a bottle of water, and awkward conversation. Every glance became a spark, every accidental touch a whisper. She hated how her pulse reacted to him, hated that fear and attraction had become indistinguishable. He noticed, too, the way her hands trembled when she handed him the cup, the way his name lingered on her lips when she said it. When she stood to clean up, he caught her wrist gently, his touch deliberate. "You don't have to pretend you're not scared," he said. She looked up, eyes locking with his. "Who says I am?" Their faces were inches apart, hearts out of rhythm. But before the moment could collapse into something neither could take back, he let go. The space between them was small, but it carried everything unspoken. That single touch lingered long after it ended, and as the sun climbed higher, both of them realized the real danger wasn't outside anymore. The light grew brighter, cutting through the cabin's dim corners. Anna sat by the window, her hands wrapped around a cup of lukewarm coffee. The silence between them was different now, no longer tense, but fragile. She replayed the night in her mind, that moment when his touch stopped time. It should have meant nothing, but it lingered like the echo of a heartbeat she couldn't control. Ethan broke the quiet first. "You regret staying, don't you?" His tone wasn't cold, just guarded. Anna looked down, unsure how to answer. "I regret signing that contract," she said softly, "but not meeting you." The confession slipped out before she could stop it. He froze, surprised, then smiled faintly, a smile that felt like warmth after a storm. Still, both of them knew reality waited beyond those walls. He moved to pack the few things they had, the muscles in his jaw tightening as if fighting thoughts he couldn't say aloud. "Once we get back to the city, this ends," he said. "It has to." Anna nodded, but her chest tightened at the words. She wanted to believe him, but a quiet whisper inside her said their story wasn't finished yet. Sometimes endings sound too much like lies. When they stepped outside, the air smelled of wet earth and freedom. The storm was gone, but the sky still carried traces of grey. Ethan unlocked the car, glancing at her reflection in the window. "You're quiet," he said. "Just thinking," she replied. He nodded, unaware that her thoughts weren't about fear anymore. They were about what would happen when pretending was no longer enough. As the city skyline came into view, Anna realized that going back didn't mean safety. It meant facing the truth in daylight. The drive back to Los Angeles felt longer than it should have. Neither of them spoke for miles, the hum of the engine filling the silence they didn't know how to break. The skyline slowly appeared through the haze, gleaming under a pale morning sun. Anna pressed her forehead against the glass, watching raindrops slide down like fading memories. The city looked the same, but nothing about her life was. Ethan's phone buzzed repeatedly, each vibration tightening his expression. "We're not safe yet," he muttered. "Someone inside the company knows too much." Anna didn't ask how he knew. She could hear the tension in his voice. "So, what happens now?" she asked quietly. "Now," he said, glancing at her. "We act like none of this ever happened." But even as he said it, his eyes betrayed him. Back in the city's chaos, everything felt louder. Cars honking, people rushing, life pretending nothing had changed. Ethan parked in an underground garage, the air thick with oil and secrets. "You go home," he said firmly. "Forget the ad. Forget me." Anna shook her head. "You really think I can just do that?" He didn't answer. For a man who always had control, he suddenly looked like someone afraid of losing it. As she stepped out of the car, her heart felt heavier than before. Trust, warmth, fear, they'd all tangled together until she couldn't tell them apart. Ethan rolled down the window, his voice low. You didn't deserve any of this. She smiled faintly, her reflection flickering in the car door. Neither did you. And with that she walked away, unaware that leaving him behind would only pull her deeper into his world. That night, a single phone call would drag Anna back into his orbit, and this time, his lie would save her life. Anna had just stepped out of the shower when her phone rang. The unknown number made her pause, water still dripping from her hair. "Miss Rivera?" a man's voice asked. "This is the LAPD. We need to ask you a few questions about Ethan Cole." Her stomach dropped. Before she could answer, another voice cut through. "Ethan's. She works for me. She's part of a confidential project." The call ended before she could even breathe. Her hands trembled as she called him back. "What was that?" she demanded. "Damage control," Ethan replied, his tone flat but protective. "Someone reported you as involved in something illegal. I had to cover it before they dragged you in." Anna paced the room, disbelief and fear colliding. "So now I'm your employee? You're my responsibility," he said. "There's a difference." His voice softened at the end, just enough to confuse her heart. The next morning, a black car arrived at her building. Ethan was inside, dressed impeccably, as if nothing in the world could touch him. "Get in," he said simply. As they drove through the city, she noticed people staring. Reporters, cameras, whispers. "You really lied to the police for me?" she asked quietly. "Lied?" he repeated. "No. I told them the truth they needed to hear." His confidence both terrified and comforted her. When they stopped in front of his company's headquarters, she felt a mix of fear and déjà vu. The same place where everything had begun now loomed before her again. "Why bring me here?" she asked. Ethan turned, his eyes darker than usual. "Because if I don't, they'll come for you again. And this time I won't be able to protect you." The honesty in his tone hit her. As they walked through the glass doors, Anna realized the world now saw her as his, and that truth would test them both, than the lie that had just saved her. The building buzzed with whispers as they entered. Every pair of eyes followed them, curious and judging. Anna walked beside Ethan, feeling like an imposter in her own story. The marble floors echoed beneath her heels, each step heavier than the last. "Why do they look at me like that?" she whispered. "Because you're with me," he replied simply. Somehow that made her heart race even more. They reached his office, a panoramic view of Los Angeles stretching behind glass walls. Reporters' voices echoed faintly from outside the building. Ethan stood tall, the picture of control, but she could see the cracks forming. Small, human ones. "You're risking everything," she said softly. "You already cost me everything," he answered, his voice firm but his eyes full of something gentler. "And I don't even regret it." The day blurred into meetings, phone calls, accusations. Someone had leaked new information, twisting the story to make Anna look like an accomplice. Ethan spent hours clearing her name, deflecting every rumor with strategic precision, but every time he defended her, the walls between them grew thinner. It wasn't just loyalty anymore. It was something deeper, something he couldn't hide behind his usual mask. Late that evening, when the office finally emptied, Anna stood by the window. "You didn't have to do all this," she said. Ethan joined her, his reflection merging with hers in the glass. "Yes, I did." Their eyes met, and the city below faded away. For a moment, there was no noise, no danger, just two people standing too close to the truth. But outside those walls, betrayal was already waiting for them both. The next morning, a familiar name would appear on Ethan's phone, proof that the real enemy had been beside him all along. Ethan's office was still dark when his phone began to ring. The name flashing on the screen made his pulse freeze. Michael, his most trusted associate. He hesitated before answering. "We need to talk," Michael said, his voice lower than usual. Not over the phone. Something about the tone made Ethan's chest tighten. He ended the call and glanced toward Anna, who was quietly reviewing some papers he'd given her. A storm was coming, one that had nothing to do with rain. They met in a nearby parking garage, shadows stretching across the concrete. "You think I don't know what you've done?" Ethan started. Michael's smirk gave away everything. "You set me up," Ethan said, his voice steady but cold. "You switched the name on the contract," Michael shrugged. "You've built an empire on secrets, Ethan. I just used one against you." The truth sliced deeper than any betrayal before. It wasn't business, it was personal. Back at the office, Anna could sense something was wrong. Ethan's silence had changed. Too heavy, too final. When he returned, his shirt was damp from the drizzle outside, his jaw clenched. "It was him," he said simply, "the person I trusted most." She didn't know what to say, so she didn't. Instead, she reached out and touched his arm, a silent promise that not everyone would turn on him. For the first time, he didn't pull away, but comfort was short-lived. Hours later, a message appeared on Anna's phone. Unknown number, no name, just words that made her blood run cold. You were never supposed to walk away from this. Her hands shook as she showed it to Ethan. His face hardened instantly. They're coming for you now, he said. The warmth between them vanished, replaced by fear, and something far stronger than either had expected. Ethan's next words carried a choice that would change everything. If you stay, I can't promise your safety. But if you go, I can't promise I'll let you. Anna stood frozen, the words hanging in the air heavier than the silence that followed. What are you saying? She asked, her voice barely more than a whisper. Ethan looked at her, the usual certainty gone from his eyes. I can protect you if you stay, but if you leave now, you'll disappear, and I'll lose the only person who didn't lie to me. Her pulse raced, torn between freedom and the pull of something she couldn't name. She paced the room, her hands trembling. Every part of her screamed to run, to go home, to her mother, to safety. But another part, the one that had begun to trust him, held her still. You don't get to make that choice for me, she said, finally meeting his gaze. He nodded slowly, his jaw tight. You're right, he admitted, but I can still beg you to stay. The honesty in his voice cut deeper than any command ever could. Ethan handed her a small envelope. Plane tickets, cash, a new name. You'll be safe if you take this, he said. No one will ever find you. Anna stared at it, then at him. And you? She asked. I'll handle the rest. His words were firm, but the tremor in his hand betrayed him. It wasn't just a goodbye, it was a promise neither wanted to make. Tears stung her eyes as she placed the envelope back on his desk. If I run, I'll never forgive myself. If I stay, maybe I'll regret it. But at least I'll know I tried. Ethan's breath caught, his eyes softening. You have no idea what you've just done, he said quietly. You just turned this fight into a war. And for the first time, Anna wasn't afraid of the storm ahead. By choosing to stay, Anna had unknowingly set a trap in motion, one that would soon turn against the real enemy. Ethan's office became their war room. Maps, photos, and documents covered every surface as Anna helped him piece together the puzzle. For the first time, she saw the strategist behind the calm, calculating, relentless, but human. If Michael wants a war, Ethan said, we'll give him one. Anna studied his expression, realizing how much trust he was giving her now. Then let's make sure we win, she replied, her voice steady. The plan was risky. Ethan would leak false information to lure Michael into a trap, one that would expose every secret he'd sold. Anna volunteered to deliver the message, insisting she'd be less suspicious. It's too dangerous, Ethan said. You said you trusted me, she reminded him. The silence that followed was thick with tension and unspoken fear. Finally he nodded. Then we do this together. That night, they drove to an old warehouse on the edge of the city. Anna's heart raced as she stepped out of the car, clutching a small recorder hidden in her jacket. The air was cold, her breath visible under the streetlights. Michael appeared from the shadows, his smirk unchanged. You brought his little assistant, he mocked. Brave or stupid? Anna forced a smile. Maybe both. The whisper of fear in her voice made the moment feel real. From a distance, Ethan listened through an earpiece, every heartbeat magnified. When Michael finally confessed his crimes, Anna gave the signal, a quiet word that meant it was over. Within seconds, security lights flashed and sirens echoed through the night. Michael tried to run, but was surrounded. As the chaos unfolded, Anna turned to find Ethan already there, his hand reaching for hers. You did it, he said softly. No, she replied, eyes glistening. We did. But in the quiet that followed victory, Ethan's voice trembled, because what he was about to confess had nothing to do with business. The police lights faded as the night fell into silence again. Ethan stood beside Anna, both of them watching the city breathe beneath the stars. The tension that had driven them for days began to dissolve, replaced by something quieter, something they'd both tried to ignore. You should rest, he said softly. It's over now. Anna turned to him, her voice steady. Then why do you look like it's just beginning? He hesitated, his usual control slipping through his fingers. Because it is, he said finally. For me, at least. She frowned, waiting. Ethan exhaled, every word feeling heavier than the last. I've spent years building walls, testing loyalty, chasing power, and somehow you, someone who shouldn't even have been here, walked right through all of it. His eyes met hers. I don't know when it happened, but I can't pretend it didn't. Anna's heart raced. She wanted to believe him, but part of her still feared being another part of his game. You're just saying that because we survived, she said, forcing a small laugh, but his expression didn't change. No, Ethan said, stepping closer. I'm saying it because for the first time in my life, I'm afraid of losing something that isn't money. The silence between them deepened, real, raw, electric. He took a careful step closer, his hand brushing hers. Anna, he whispered, I love you. Her breath caught, the words hitting her like truth and storm all at once. For a moment, she couldn't move. Then, instead of answering, she placed her hand over his, letting her heartbeat speak for her. The world outside was still dangerous, but right then, nothing else mattered. But just as peace began to settle, a single phone call would remind them. Danger doesn't disappear, it just changes its name. The phone rang just before dawn, slicing through the calm like a blade. Ethan answered instinctively, his body tensing with every word. He's gone, the voice on the other end said. Michael escaped custody. Anna's heart dropped. She could hear Ethan's sharp breath, the sound of his world tilting again. He won't stop until one of us is gone, Ethan said, voice low, controlled, but his eyes gave away the fear he'd buried too long. By the time they reached the private hangar, the air smelled like metal and rain. Ethan's team had been compromised. Every face looked suspicious now. Anna stayed close, her instincts screaming that something was off. And then it happened. A shadow moved between the planes, followed by a spark. Get down, Ethan shouted, pulling her behind a car just before an explosion lit up the sky. Fire reflected in his eyes like rage given form. Smoke filled the air as chaos erupted around them. Ethan ran toward the flames, ignoring her calls. Ethan, stop! Anna shouted, but he didn't turn back. Without thinking, she followed, coughing through the smoke until she saw him cornered. Michael had a weapon aimed at his chest, his face twisted in vengeance. You took everything from me, he growled. No, Ethan said calmly. You did that to yourself. Before Michael could react, Anna struck from behind, disarming him with a strength born of sheer desperation. The fight ended as suddenly as it began. Ethan stared at her, stunned, then pulled her close, his heartbeat wild against her cheek. You saved my life, he whispered. Guess that makes us even, she said, trembling but smiling through it. In the middle of the smoke and ruin, forgiveness finally found its way between them. As the sirens approached, Ethan took her hand. Let's go home, he said, and for once he wasn't talking about a place, but a person. Weeks later, Los Angeles looked almost peaceful again. The chaos had faded into whispers, replaced by the hum of life moving forward. Anna stood in front of the same building where it all began, the dusty office where she'd signed that mysterious contract. But this time the walls gleamed, the air felt lighter. Feels different now, Ethan said behind her, his tone warm. Maybe because it's real this time. She smiled, remembering how it all started, with desperation, fear, and a mistake that changed everything. Inside, Ethan placed a folder on the desk in front of her. No lies, no fine print, no hidden terms, just one sheet of paper and a pen. It's a new contract, he said. Partnership 50-50. You'll handle community projects under my company's foundation. Anna looked at the page, then at him. No tricks this time? She teased. Only one, he said, his eyes soft. You have to stay. Her laugh filled the room like sunlight after rain. Their lives slowly intertwined in quiet, imperfect ways. Dinners that turned into late-night talks, arguments that ended in laughter, moments where silence said everything. Ethan was still the same. Intense, focused, but she'd learned to see past the walls, and in her, he found something he'd never been able to buy, peace. The mistakes that once haunted them had become the truth that held them together. Love didn't erase the scars. It simply made them worth keeping. On a quiet evening, they stood on the balcony overlooking the city lights. Do you ever think about how it started? She asked. Every day, he said. You captured me without even knowing. She smiled, leaning into him. Guess I'm guilty then. Ethan wrapped an arm around her, his voice a soft whisper against her hair. You didn't steal my freedom, Anna, you gave it back. And as the wind brushed past them, the heartbeat of two survivors finally settled into one rhythm, proof that some accidents are meant to happen. Sometimes destiny doesn't knock, it breaks in, rewrites everything, and still finds a way to call it love. Sometimes life writes the best stories when everything goes wrong first. Anna thought she was taking a simple job, yet that mistake led her to a man who taught her what trust, forgiveness, and freedom really mean. Ethan learned that money can't buy peace, but love can build it from ruins. Together, they turned chaos into destiny. Now tell me, what would you have done in her place? Would you have walked away from someone like Ethan, or risked everything to stay by his side? Do you believe in accidents that feel too perfect to be coincidences? Share your thoughts below. Your story might just inspire someone else tonight. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Someone needs it more than you think. And if you love emotional billionaire romance stories that touch your heart, turn on notifications so you never miss the next one, because sometimes the heart's biggest mistakes are the ones that end up saving us.